Hello, I'm John Longstreet, and I'm here today with 2020 Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association Chairman Tim Zugger. Tim, thanks for joining us in Harrisburg today.
Thanks for having me, John.
And of course, we just finished the first executive committee meeting of your regime, and I think it was very well conducted.
It was a great meeting.
Yeah, we have great leadership. Yeah.
Thank you.
We also, of course, just finished a leadership retreat over the last couple of days to talk about how we can move PRLA to new heights, which is, I think, really exciting for me, and I know the team's going to be excited with the new ideas too.
Yeah, it was time well spent.
Yeah. Well, look, Tim, to start off, I wanted for our members that don't have the pleasure of getting to know you, to get to know you a little bit better. So that's why we're here today. So to start off, why don't you tell me a little bit about or tell us a little bit about your background, what got you started in this business?
My dad and my grandfather were both hotel general managers. So I grew up in the business. I actually lived in a hotel until I went away to college. So the hotel life was not only hotel life for me, but it was also my family life in the beginning.
So what was that hotel that you grew up in?
It was a Statler Hilton in Buffalo, New York.
And it was, and you've taught me this before, it was the first hotel that had stacked bathrooms in their construction.
Yeah, it sure was.
Was it built around the turn of the century?
It was built in early 1900s, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of romance around this idea of being a hotel general manager and living in the hotel and maybe being a young kid and getting to grow up in a hotel. What was it really like?
Well, there's pluses and minuses. You're always provided special treatments. You come home from school and you pull up in front of the hotel and somebody's there to open the door for you and welcome you. So in that regard, I was shown high levels of service at a young age and maybe didn't appreciate it as much back then. But, if my parents were out in the evening and we could order room service for dinner, so our dinner was delivered for us. So, it was a different life. But on the other side, we didn't have a yard to play in and that like other kids might have. We had a house out on the lake that we went to on the weekends and in the summertime, but during the week we were in the hotel.
Have you lived in a hotel as general manager?
I have not.
Okay. That's probably something you'd like to get away from, right?
Yeah, I worked in a lot of hotels where the general manager lived in, and it didn't always make life easy for us because he was always there and seemed like always looking over our shoulder. But I think it probably helped him have a good feel at all the time what's going on in his property.
So you run the DoubleTree downtown Pittsburgh, and you've been there for some time now, right?
11 years.
Yeah, and that was kind of your goal, to get to a place where you could keep the family in one city.
Yeah, I worked for Hilton Hotels for 23 years. Loved every minute that I worked for them. And I left Hilton for one reason, and that was because my daughter at the time was in 5th grade, and she'd been, I think, in 4 different schools. And I just said it would be difficult for me to raise my family that way. So I had an opportunity to leave Hilton and run a big hotel in Pittsburgh. And for that reason, I left a company that I loved.
Yeah. Well, Pittsburgh's a pretty good place to be. You'd been there before, though, right? You'd worked
there before. I worked for Hilton in Pittsburgh, and that's why I had so much comfort going back there.
Yeah. Pittsburgh also, where you're located, has seen an unprecedented surge in new hotel development. I think it was 2 years ago. It was one of the fastest developing hotel markets in the country as far as new supply goes. That makes your life more difficult. How is that shaping up right now?
Yeah, it's really made the business environment difficult. The average rates have headed in the wrong direction. Every piece of business that comes to market is very competitive. Everybody's bidding on it. We've had to change some of the ways we've done business, and we went after some permanent business, some airline crews that we never had before, and really focused on some business that wasn't good business for us in the past. It's necessary business for us now. Yeah.
So they take a certain amount of rooms on a permanent basis. So you're essentially taking them out of inventory.
Every day.
Smart. Well, it's no secret, speaking of tough issues, that the toughest issue today is staffing because of the declining working age population, if you will. And we talked about it a lot over the last 24 hours since we've been together. What are you specifically doing at the DoubleTree to combat this?
Well, I think when you look at workforce development, I think we all understand it's harder and harder to hire the right people. So, the first thing that we're doing is working even harder to keep the people that we have. That's the way not to have to deal with the workforce problems that are out there today. But ultimately, what you don't want to do is lower your standards and hire people that aren't going to be good for the job and aren't going to be good for your property. But what we've probably done is we've hired people with maybe a little less experience. But in that case, we definitely make sure we're hiring the right personality and the right attitude and getting somebody that we can take a little bit more time to train, but in the end, they're going to be the right employee for us.
Have you had to change your training programs at all to adapt to that?
I think so, and partially because we're hiring some people that are a little less experienced. So I think the training may be a little more intense than it would have been if we hired somebody that had worked in our industry for a longer period of time.
So the good news is people are getting a chance to do new things and get trained to do it and maybe improve themselves.
There's definitely a lot of opportunities in our industry, and we don't see that changing anytime quickly.
Yeah. Tim, you've been a really committed volunteer for PRLA. Obviously, you're sitting here as the chairman right now, but you also were very active in PTLA, the Lodging Association predecessor to PRLA, and you've been president of the Western Chapter, president of Greater Pittsburgh Hotel Association. Can you explain why you feel it was important to get involved?
Yeah, I've always been supportive of the local associations, not only the ones that you've mentioned, but Visit Pittsburgh, which is our Convention and Visitors Bureau. I sat on their board. I think every opportunity that I've had to participate and get involved has been not only positive that I'm helping out an association, but it's been good for myself and good for my business too. When I participate in these different boards, I'm always learning more for myself. I'm up to date on different things that are going on in our industry. There's a lot of peers there that can share ideas, and it seems like every time we get together, there's more and more for me to learn.
Can I paraphrase you by saying what you get out of the organization is what you put into it?
That's probably a good way to put it. And really, the time that I spend is productive time for me.
Well, we appreciate it because it's really productive for us too. So now you're chairman. You operate a significant hotel within Pittsburgh. You have a family. You have 2 daughters that are at milestones in their life. How do you balance all this? I always hear from people that say, I just don't have time. I can't do anymore. But you seem to do it all. Yeah. You seem to do it with, not effortlessly, but with somewhat effortlessly.
Part of the solution, you talked about earlier, I've been in the same position for 11 years. So though business is always changing, there's always something new going on, I think I'm very comfortable in my role at the DoubleTree. That does provide me with a little bit more time to commit to events like this and be able to participate and be able to spend some time in Harrisburg and be able to spend some time planning and forecasting and doing all the things that we do together to help out the association. And it's having a stable environment where I'm at definitely provides me with a little bit more free time. But along with that, I always, like I mentioned earlier, I always look at the time that we spend together as productive for me, productive for my career, because it's a learning experience all the time.
Terrific. So at PRLA, we've had a lot of really good leaders in the past, and I think we have a good team in Harrisburg that I get to work with. We're doing good things. That said, each chairman has their priorities and the things that they think that we want to place an extra focus on. What are your priorities for 2020?
If I had to pick the top 3, I'd say workforce development. We talked about that in the beginning. Workforce development is a huge issue for our industry. If we as an association can help out our members in that regard, it would be a huge accomplishment. Not sure that we have all the answers sitting here today and really the additional things that we can do, but that's definitely an item that we want to look at and want to really help out with. New member growth. There's a lot of hotels and restaurants in the Commonwealth that aren't currently members, and we've got a lot to offer them, and I think that we have opportunities there to grow our new members, and that's going to be a focus for us this year. And the last item that's really important to me is for our members to become more involved. Their attendance at our events, their attendance at our chapter meetings. Every time we have one of these special events, it's always a learning experience. We always have some educational component. We always talk a lot about the things that the association is working on in Harrisburg, and everyone that attends the events comes away with a positive impression of our association and comes away with some good knowledge. And one of my goals is to try and find ways to get more people to become involved.
Yeah, well, we're certainly going to work hard on that one. I agree with you. The more people get involved, the better we are. This is kind of tough to narrow down, but what would you say is the single most important trait of a leader?
I would say consistency in our business. There's so much that happens, and when you're dealing with people and you're managing people, they need to know what's in your head and what direction you would turn in certain instances. And if you say one thing one day and something totally different the next day, it really puts a confusing situation in front of your team. And consistency is really important to me.
Great. What's the best decision you've ever made?
In my career would probably be going to work for Hilton Hotels. I worked for them for a long time. They provided me with a ton of knowledge about our industry. They moved me to many different locations, and it was a great career choice in picking Hilton as my first job out of college.
Wow.
And 23 years later is when I left.
And of those places that Hilton sent you, setting aside Pittsburgh, what was your favorite?
It's a question that I get often from people, and I was everywhere from New York to Myrtle Beach to New Orleans to Atlanta to Chicago, Pittsburgh. I was in New Jersey. I was in Detroit. There wasn't a place that I lived that I didn't enjoy. I don't know that I really have a favorite. I think I made the best out of every opportunity that I had. And I looked forward all the time to my next assignment. It was difficult in the way because I never really had a home. I always bought a house, and the family, was always with me.
This time will be different, right?
But it was from one city to the next, and it was a lot of fun. But when I got to that point in my life where my kids were starting to get to the age where they were going to school, I knew it had to stop.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out. All right, so lastly, what one piece of career advice would you provide to somebody starting out?
In our business, if it's hotels or restaurants, it's tough work. And you need to make sure this is what you want to do, and you need to commit yourself to doing the best you can do every day. When 5 o'clock comes around, if the work's not done, you have to raise your hand and be able to stay and help out until all the guests are taken care of and the task is completed. A lot of young folks these days come out of school and want to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and that's not our industry. And you have to be passionate about our industry. You have to be passionate about serving guests, and The schedule is going to vary, and that's part of what you have to deal with until you get to a point in your career where I'm at, and then your schedule's a little bit more stable. But
then you use all your time for PRLA.
Yeah. But yeah, I think just know what you're getting into, and it's not an easy industry, but it's an industry you'll love for years to come. You're working with people and you're servicing people, and every day is different, and you'll really enjoy it. But you also have to be willing to commit yourself when need be.
Good advice. Well, Tim, thanks again for taking the time to sit down with me today. It's been a pleasure getting to know you in this forum, and I really look forward to working with you this year.
My pleasure, John. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.
You bet. And I'm John Longstreet. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again next time.